Hey, what is going on, everyone? Joe Menza here to do some watercolor painting. And I thought I'd gear this one a little bit more for beginners. We are using the large Ron Ranson hake or hake brush, goat hair brush. And I'm wetting down a piece of 9 by 12 watercolor paper. This is cotton paper. And I usually put a couple of coats down of this water and then let it absorb in a bit into the paper. What you do is, if you're just starting out, watch my beginner watercolor, water control paint videos. But basically, you start off with a full hake, full of water, and then as you work down the page, you're using less and less water and a bit more from the tube. So first thing we're going to start with is a little sky or a little bit of a background. And you'll notice I'm using a little bit different of a palette today. This one here is a nice one. You could fill up all the color slots. I would use the basic 7 colors if I was just starting out. You can join us over at the Ron Ranson group on Facebook, and we'll talk more about those colors there. We have pinned, and I'll put them in the description here. I had quite a large assortment of paints in a box from Michael's, the Artist Loft, and I thought I would put them on this particular palette, just to have a separate palette, using a little alizarin crimson, a little warm yellow color here, just to kind of make a warmer background for the sky. And then I'll dig into a little bit of blue. We usually use ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson and light red in the Cotman line of Winsor & Newton colors, but the idea here, the technique is similar. You'll notice I'm kind of using a little wiggle pattern here and leaving the light open in the sky. And the blue is sort of to represent clouds, even though there's a blue sky. We kind of do the opposite. It's easier for cloud creation, sky creation. And this was something taught to us by Ron Ranson and as a way to do skies. Well, you can also lift them out, do a solid color, and lift clouds out with a tissue. Now, I've gone into some darker blue here. This is probably a little more of a phthalo blue. You can add a little bit of Payne's gray to your ultramarine, and it'll make it a little bit darker. And the idea really, I think you'll know you're using too much water when you have too much running down the paper. Nothing wrong with a little run, but here's the lifting I was talking about. If you're really running down the paper, you've got way too much water on your brush. So you want to have a towel handy. And that towel you can use, as Ron Ranson used to call it, like a brake on a car. And you can just tap off the excess water onto that towel. So you should have a towel next to you, dishcloth, tea towel. You can use paper towels, but you'll go through a lot of those. So I'm taking some green here. When we make greens, we typically make them ourselves. We use a lemon yellow, Payne's gray, ultramarine blue. If you can find a color you like, I like Daniel Smith undersea green. That's a nice ready-made green, but otherwise, sometimes the made greens, I'm getting tongue-tied here, the ready-made greens look kind of garish, kind of gaudy looking for me. You may like them. I mean, it's up to you. Everybody's got a different eye and a different taste. But for me, they don't look like the greens that you see in nature. But they can have a particularly nice effect sometimes. In some regions, grass is very green. I mean, you look at, like in Ireland, you see greens there that you don't necessarily see in America. Now, I've left a little area here in the bottom for the pond, and I'm darkening out where the shoreline would be. You don't want to close this off. I'm dangerously close to getting narrow here in this pond, and I don't want to close that off. I want to leave that. And I've put some, down by the, this is really all shapes. Let me put it that way. When you start painting, use foliage, use the corner of the brush. Don't worry about making foliage. Actually, don't even really try to paint foliage or anything like that. Just concentrate on the brush strokes, putting the color down and the shapes. That's it. And then stand back and look at it. Don't get too caught up in that. Really, a lot of it is color and contrast and things. And the eye and the brain will make up you know, things for you that are not there. It'll put the two and two together. And as you can see, this is probably a nice, it's a very inexpensive palette. It's a very inexpensive palette that you can purchase. And it makes it very, very handy. If you like using this type of artist palette, it'll make you feel like an artist. Now I'm making a little bit of brown here. It's probably still a little yellow on my brush. And just sweep those up and make your tree trunks. Now I will tell you, don't wash your brush too much unless you're going from like a dark to a light color. Let those colors mix. Now here I'm going to take my, what we call a rigger brush. This is a fine line brush. And I'm going to wiggle in some branches. And what's nice is if you can make them dark and wiggle them into a light area, you get a nice contrast there. There's a nice few little branches there that very fine. I really like this. I found this brush at Michael's, and it's a very, very fine rigger brush, and I do like it. Again, I'm using, I forgot the brand. I think it's Winsor & Newton brand, but it's 100% cotton paper. And we did have a discussion about that. And again, use what makes you happy. Cotton paper is top of the line. It's your Cadillac or Rolls-Royce of materials, along with your Daniel Smith and your Winsor & Newton artist grade. If you can afford those and you want to use the best of the best, that's the way to go. If you're just having fun and you just want to finger paint, then use whatever you can afford, whatever makes you happy. Your results will be similar. You know, if you're going to make a career out of this, then you're probably going to plan on spending a lot of money for this. Although a fun hobby, it can get expensive. And you just take your plastic credit card like I just did, and you can scrape away at the paint and create instant light, instant tree bark, instant rocks. That's the fun part. That's the whole fun part of this technique for watercolor painting, is the scraping, I think, and scratching. Scratching and scraping. I was going to say scrating. It's funny when your brain puts words together like that. We'll call it scrating. Scratching and scraping. Scrating and creating. So I've added some stronger greens to the bottom there and sort of anchored those scraped in rocks. And now I'm going to pop in a couple of birds with my pen in the light area. And there's the finished product. Well, I hope you enjoyed this simple one. And I will see you on the next video. Any questions, please comment below. Have a great day.